One of the things RVers have realized for some time now is how easy it is to work from the road. Many people, too, now during this coronavirus shutdown are doing the same thing, only working from home. And this whole idea of being able to have conferences remotely, to work remotely, has led to a boom in telemedicine. Doctors who practice all online. We are going to be joined today in our interview of the week by Dr. Tom Davis, and he is an expert at this emerging field called telemedicine. He's been especially busy treating patients during the COVID-19 epidemic. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but mostly we're going to talk about how RVers can take advantage of telemedicine while they're traveling.
Time now for the RV Podcast Interview of the Week. Interesting, entertaining, and helpful information about the RV lifestyle. Here's Mike with this week's interview.
Well, Dr. Tom Davis joins us right now via the internet and appropriate topic. Dr. Tom, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm awesome. And, it seems funny to say this as the whole nation, as we record this, is still kind of in this lockdown, some early stages of coming out. But it's been a time of great reflection and learning. And one of the things we've learned is how many things we can do through the internet, including telemedicine. Tell us how you got involved in that, Tom, and as an RVer, how it has worked with your practice.
Well, I sold my partners and I sold our practice about 8 years ago for more money than anybody should ever have. And I quickly learned that being an employed doctor as opposed to being self-employed was not a good fit. So I started thinking about what would my dream job be if I could create the job. And my dream job would basically be RVing as close to full-time as I could while still generating enough income to cover my expenses.
Now,
And go ahead.
Tell us about your RV. Who do you travel with?
I travel with my wife and our two dogs, Bennett and Crinkles, which figure prominently in our travels. And we have a 26-foot Thor. My wife is the wrench. She is the one that selected it, did all the stuff, and keeps it repaired. I'm the one that either sits in the back or sits in the chair out of earshot and does my telemedicine encounters.
I sold the last RV I sold to a doc in Hawaii who came over, and he has been practicing telemedicine in our old RV. So I feel like a pioneer here too, almost.
You absolutely are a pioneer. My wife and I actually took our family on an RV trip around the big island of Hawaii when our kids were little, and that was the first inkling that I had about what the RV life could be like. We beat the heck out of that RV. Oh my gosh!
Not a lot of them to get in Hawaii. So.
No, it was a blast.
Well, let's talk about telemedicine for a few minutes. You wanted to go out and have the dream job, which was traveling in an RV and doing telemedicine. For a lot of people who have their dream is to travel in an RV, one of the things they have worried about for a long time is what happens if we get sick? And telemedicine, we've heard the phrase, but let's explain how advanced it has become and how RVers would take advantage of telemedicine.
Well, a lot of insurance companies have a telemedicine benefit, but their beneficiaries don't realize. Especially true if you have a Medicare Advantage plan. Excuse me. It's there. You just never realize it until all of the face-to-face venues for getting healthcare were closed down. Then you were kind of shifted to that, and you were kind of left wondering, what can I do safely over this? What can I do safely? And I've been doing it now for over 5 years. In fact, I teach other clinicians how to do it. And the lesson here for patients who are using telemedicine is to make sure that you recognize its limitations. It's very convenient. You can get a lot out of it. But even though it seems like a doctor's visit and me on the other end of the line seem like I'm your doctor, it is not an in-person office visit. And I am not your doctor. I don't know you from Adam. All I have to go on is what you tell me and maybe the tone of your voice. And if it's video, maybe some very low resolution video that's very jerky. But aside from that, that's all I have to go on. So from a patient's perspective, you have to be very, very cautious about what kind of information you get back from me as a physician. And if it doesn't sound right, if it's not if it doesn't go along with what you called about, if anything doesn't smell right, then just go see somebody in person. And as the lockdown is opening up now, those are readily available and they can be done safely. Because a month ago, people didn't have a handle on COVID right now, but I can guarantee you that the urgent care and the ER infrastructure now is such that you can go and get that care safely if you need. But telemedicine is a great way to triage with confidence. You just, as a patient, have to remember that I, as a physician, am trained to examine you in person, to touch you, to look at your whole body language, even to smell you. Okay. And I don't have any of those cues when I'm talking to you over the phone or over video. So even though this is being pushed as the next best thing since sliced bread, patients have to understand there are limitations, but if you treat it with respect, it can be a phenomenal tool, especially for RVers who are away from their home network and can only get care covered if it's a quote unquote emergency.
Let's start with the things that you shouldn't use telemedicine for, and give us a sense of, and that will help us then get into the things we can.
Well, that's a very subjective question. I want to make sure everybody knows this is not medical advice, it's just general trends. But if you think that you should go to the emergency room for something, that should be your default. You probably should. Okay. So anything that's immediately life or limb threatening that you're concerned, anything from crushing substernal chest pain to cutting off your finger, anything like that, don't waste your time trying to land a telemedicine encounter. Go to the ER. Trust yourself. You know more what you think. You know more than you think. And a lot of people waste time with serious illnesses and they go on Dr. Google or they wait for the telemedicine process to play itself out until I get to them. And I say, man, you need to hang up the phone and go to the emergency room right now. Or you need to pass the phone to your spouse and have them call 911 right now. It's very disconcerting, the delays in care that it can lead to because of misunderstandings. And it's very easy. I mean, you're don't feel well, you're nervous, you're scared, you don't know. That's fine. Trust your intuition. If you think you need to go to an urgent care ER, then go. That is the bottom line for screening yourself for a telemedicine problem.
So then what do we use telemedicine for? Prescription refills, I suppose, when we're on the road. That seems like an easy one there. But
Prescription refills, limited illnesses, anything from upper respiratory tract infections like coughs, colds, sinuses, all the way to urinary tract infections. Rashes can be good. Again, there's that video limitation.
Yeah, here it is, right here. I got a little rash on my skin.
Yeah, and I can't see it. The lighting is bad. It's usually artificial. And
Right.
here's a dirty little secret. Most of dermatology is simply pattern recognition. That's good news because it makes it very straightforward. The bad news there is if I can't see the pattern, I really can't tell you what the heck it is. And all the demos that you see are very, high resolution, people holding still with, studio lighting. Well, that never happens. So, rashes are something we can talk about, but don't be surprised if I have to refer you in for your safety.
So I would call you for a prescription refill, but you said some upper respiratory. I have to ask, have you ended up with much COVID-19 treatment as you have been practicing your telemedicine?
I have probably taken care of more COVID-19 patients in the past 4 months than anyone on the planet. And I say
Really?
that with absolute seriousness. I bet you I have taken a total of 2,000 patient encounters over the past 5 months and that were COVID related. Because you got to remember, about 6 weeks ago, on a dime, the entire healthcare system in the United States went online. And although the health systems should have been prepared for that, they certainly get well paid enough to be prepared to do that. They were totally unprepared. And so one weekend I did 250 encounters. The next weekend I did 210 encounters. I did 50, 60, 70 encounters a day simply because there was nobody else to do it. It was just those of us who were working through the telemedicine platforms that were already established. And I can tell you that there's a lot of fear of unknown, but everything has settled down. The face-to-face infrastructure has adapted very rapidly, thanks to the clinicians and the nurses and the staff on the front line, less so to the people running things at the top. But it's adapted, so you can get care safely now and not really have to worry about getting COVID-19 if you need to be seen.
How do you treat it to telemedicine? I mean, I suppose people will call you up and says, "Hey, I got a dry cough. I feel a little pressure in my lungs, that kind of stuff." And then how do you treat that? You tell them to go take home, drink a lot of fluids. What? Take 2 aspirins and telemedicine me tomorrow.
Well, I mean, that's essentially it. You have to remember that there's still no treatment for COVID-19. There's all sorts of little telemedicine techniques that I have learned that have been validated in the literature over the years that can allow me to assess somebody's well-being remotely. There's just little tricks and tips that I learned, but if you don't do telemedicine on a regular basis, you don't know those. And when COVID hit, the doctors, by and large, weren't trained to do it. I was fortunate. My residency program, which is was the best in the country, spent a great deal of time teaching about telemedicine because as a family small town doctor, that's a lot of our practice. So we learned those validated techniques and we kept up to date with them. So they were very applicable at COVID-19. Most of what I did was to tell people to be cool and look. These are the signs that you look for that should send you to the ER, which were very minimal. But it was very reassuring to be able to tell them, we did these things, we did these maneuvers over the phone. They tell me that you're fine. And then what they really needed to was a note to keep them at home for 14 days so they didn't get fired.
That's and you saw that many of them. That is just astounding.
Hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds.
Now,
It certainly has tapered down now, but at that time it was kind of spooky.
now you have written a book, which we're going to refer. We'll put links in the show notes. Everybody can check the look on how telemedicine works. You also have a couple of web resources, and we'll send them to them. But before I get into your RVing use and how you actually do this from the road, the whole issue of payment on telemedicine, it's as I understand it, it's called cash pay managed healthcare, and then there's something called consumer-driven healthcare. As I read up on telemedicine, I see those terms a lot. Explain those to our viewers and our listeners.
So telemedicine is kind of serving as a quote unquote gateway drug to consumer-driven healthcare. Like I said, most people have third-party payers coverage either through the exchange or through Medicare Advantage. They have some sort of telemedicine benefit, and it's usually free, and it's usually independent of your location. So if your network's in LA and you're in Miami, you can still use it. So, and a lot of people have that, but a lot of people can't afford exchange insurance or don't want to go on Medicare Advantage, so they have traditional Medicare. So what they can do is they can go to one of these national chains that offer telemedicine visits for 25, 45, $100, and you pay your money, and then you call up and you get value for your money. You work with the physician and you get what you need. Then there's a whole nother level of payment that's just now taken off, which are clinicians that are cash pay only. Instead of the insurance company offering the coverage, the clinicians do. And one of their service packages you can buy from them is telemedicine access. When I was a primary care doctor, when I was a family physician, my patients knew they could call me at 24/7 if they needed to, and I didn't really charge them. I was trained that was part of the deal. But now that healthcare delivery has been so corporatized and so fragmented, the regular family physicians can't afford to do that anymore. What they can do as part of their practice package, because they don't take insurance and they don't take Medicare or Medicare Advantage, you sign up with them for a specific amount of money per month, or you sign up for their telemedicine access service. So for $30 a month, you get 24/7 access to them. And they take care of you as best they can, as limited by whatever state that you're standing in when you make that call. And it is the response to that is so dramatic because it's so relatively inexpensive and you get so much value for your dollar that even people who are covered with Medicare Advantage are looking into buying these services as an ancillary, because accessing them and the tight relationship they get with their clinician is so much better than the commoditized relationship they have with their PCP under Medicare Advantage, where they're getting pestered to just send them in their information all the time. So this telemedicine and COVID is a great example of how innovation in healthcare delivery is bubbling up from the bottom, and it's starting to disrupt things. And because most of the health systems now are in serious financial trouble, even with the billions that the government has given them, it's coming at exactly the right time.
Now, you say most Medicare Advantage programs do cover this. Is it, do you, how do, okay, so I'm an RVer. I'm outside of Glacier National Park later this summer. I've got a respiratory thing. I don't know where the doctors, I don't know an ER. I call telemedicine. How do I get my insurance to cover that?
Well, it should be part of your part of your plan. Now they're starting to print that on the back of your card. But if you don't have that, you just look up the packet that you got. Supposedly, you got an email or you got a hard copy, and it should be on your list of benefits there. And again, if you can't find it or whatnot, you call your insurance agent, the agent through which you bought your policy, and they'll be happy to tell you. And if that's not possible, then you call the insurance company. But of course, each one of those steps I just said is more and more involved in terms of getting that information. I mean, who knows when your insurance company will get back to you, and the insurance agent should be responsive, but some of them aren't. So, that's something that you should forearm yourself with the moment before you put your signature on the bottom line. Because I'll tell you, the agents and the insurance company, they're so anxious to get your signature on the bottom line. I mean, I'm something of an expert in Medicare Advantage as well. They will do and tell you anything that you need to know in order to get you to sign. So
Yeah.
that's really when you get that information.
It's kind of like every part of of any kind of commerce, and that's what we're talking about in a sense here too with healthcare.
Mhm.
So I'm curious how it works with you, with Dr. Tom Davis. How do you work on the RV? Tell us about your lifestyle, how you are able to connect and practice medicine online, and what has this meant to you personally to
Well,
get out
that
of
is a
the office?
that's a great question because I'm on I guess the seventh or eighth week of our lockdown here at our home base, and I'm really itching. We're in a couple of weeks. We're going. I don't care what's shut down or not. I don't care if somebody slashes our tires because we're from out of state. I don't care anymore. I got to get out. Basically, what we do is we go to a place that we wanted to see, and we stay there for a few days, up to a few weeks, up to a few months. In the morning, I get up, I take care of the dogs, sit outside with my laptop and my phone and my earbuds, and I work a couple hours, take some encounters, usually about 20 in the morning, and then do what we need to do. And then I usually take 20 in the evening while my wife does what she needs to do. And that generates about 75 to 80% of what the average family physician will generate in the course of a year. And of course, the deal is that I'm in my pajama pants and I'm looking at a glacier, as opposed to being under a fluorescent light and hearing people scream at me in the background. So it is a transformational lifestyle. And one of the reasons why I did that is, again, I coach clinicians on how to, among other things, about how to use telemedicine to live their dream life. Before COVID, half the doctors were looking to quit within 5 years. After COVID, you can only imagine what that number is. And I was modeling the lifestyle for them. The problem is that the lifestyle's so nice, I can't stop modeling it. And that's why I'm excited to talk to your listeners, because I'm one of them. I mean, I'm there. When the word gets around the campsite that I'm a doctor and I'm licensed in that state, they all wander up to me for looking for freebies.
Yeah.
And of course, I would never give them medical advice unless it was in a regulatory compliant way. Certainly not. But that just makes me one of the tribe.
So I guess I still don't have a firm grip on how someone gets a hold of like you or another clinician who practices with telemedicine. How do I find that? Is there a service that we should sign up for? What is the best way to do that?
Well, the model that I practice under is I contract with a number of national telemedicine service provider chains. And so when I'm ready to work, I simply go on my computer and turn on all the portals. And there's a long line of patients that are waiting to see me, and I service them as long as I can. And then I turn off the portals. That's one model. Another model is a physician who sets up their own telemedicine practice and has their own patients and takes encounters on demand when somebody wants to call them. That all is a model that works. It has its pros and cons as well. The idea, though, is that clinicians are putting their skills out there in the virtual environment where they're more relaxed and more able to engage with the patient. And as long as the patient recognizes the limitation of those telemedicine services, it can be very reassuring and very useful. And I tell you, it's so efficient that the bean counters that are running the show at the head of all these health systems, they're going to use COVID as an excuse to transition their model into kind of a spoken wheel telemedicine service where seeing your doctor face to face is actually going to be a luxury item. And so everyone needs to understand how to use these telemedicine services to their best benefit, because they're going to be pushed on them whether or not you're ready to receive them.
But for RVers, it is a great comforting way for us to be able to have the health care we need while we're on the road, and to be sure that we're going to at least get the information we need to make wise health decisions, whether we go to the doctor, whether we go to in person, or whether we go to an ER, or whether the telemedicine will help. Well, you have been great. I'm going to send everybody to your book, because I think that's the first step we want everybody to do, is to read that book. And we'll send them to all the websites that you are wish. And I know we're going to generate a lot of questions and a lot of comments, but I hope Jennifer and I run into you guys out on the road this summer, because we can't wait to get out of this lockdown either.
Well, let's look around. You never know what campsite I'm going to be at.
Yeah, well, it's the same with us, except we're usually boondocking out in the middle of nowhere. Dr. Tom Davis, our guest, thank you so much for being with us on this episode of the RV podcast.
Thank you. It's been a privilege, and keep moving.
Well, thanks to Dr. Tom Davis for spending some time with us on the interview of the week. Is telemedicine right for you? Well, we'll put links in the description below that'll help you find out more about this subject and how it would fit into your RV lifestyle plans. Meantime, would you do us a big favor and subscribe to the RV Lifestyle channel right here on YouTube? When you do that, don't forget to click that bell icon. When you do that, then you'll be notified when we have new videos online. I'm Mike Wendland. Thanks so much for watching the interview of the week, and happy trails.